and we are here. Not so much in person,
We
but
are here.
live.
We're here and we're there.
Hey,
We are both. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
I can't complain. It's been
What
nice.
What are we drinking today?
I am having Michter's. Just on the rocks. Just Michter's.
I got myself a little
How
glass
you?
of some Balcones Baby Blue. It's one of my favorite Texas whiskeys. Cheers to you. Ever so
Yeah, it's,
delicious.
It has been interesting here. We normally kick off by talking about the weather, and it's been fantastic here. The humidity is pretty low. We have, I don't know, the weather guy said something. Here's the technical term, and what I heard was the humidity is down, and I was like, that is very nice living here. So it's been pretty great. Been going pretty well. Excited to be hanging out on podcasts.
Yeah,
Thank you
man.
for bumping it one day. I had a migraine yesterday.
Well, we both had a
but today is-
rough day, night, whatever you want to call it. So I didn't sleep the
Yeah,
night before, so it
it's-
was a good idea. Good call.
But I mean, hey, we're only a day late, right? So this is
Yeah.
this is good for us.
Look at
this
us.
Is, August the 15th, 2024. I'm not hating it. It's Thursday instead of Wednesday.
Yeah.
But those listeners in podcast land don't care anyway. It comes out when it comes out, and
Right.
they listen, and it'll be ready this weekend, like it always is. But if you're into watching us stream it on YouTube, and you showed up last night, I hope you're just still sitting there, and you've been here for 27 hours now. That's amazing.
Look, where are they?
It's like waiting in line for Garth Brooks tickets.
Right. Totally the same thing. Exactly the
We're
same.
worth it.
Yeah.
In Kingston, Jamaica.
And Kingston, Jamaica. Or Aruba if you're trying to dodge taxes, apparently. I don't know why I pulled that out earlier in a conversation, but
Yeah, what's going on with Aruba?
I don't know. I have no
specifically?
idea. It was just a random. I knew that there's a warm place in the world that you can, rich people hide money or something. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I am not part of that
You know a lot about
demographic for sure.
I was going to say, you know a lot about rich people hiding money, do you?
Yeah. Well,
I think you and I have been having our own conversations, friend.
come at me, IRS. You're going to be sorely disappointed with what you find.
Yeah, whatever you spend on that. Here's what I promise you about the IRS coming after me. If you spend more than $1 on it, you have lost money.
Exactly. Yes.
You're getting nothing. There's nothing there. Good luck, friend.
You're better just asking. You hit any money? Nope. Okay.
So we got some folks in chat hanging out on YouTube. For those listening in podcast worlds, we do this on YouTube. We do it live. It has video. We hang out. We do try to engage somewhat with chat on YouTube, but we also try to call everything out. So if you're listening in podcast land, you get the whole context. But if you really want the full experience, YouTube's not a bad place to get it. We got a couple
Yeah.
folks here hanging out. A lot of fun. So Hapa, tell me, how are things in Texas, bud?
Comfy. Well, that's a relative term. Okay. We're still like 99 degrees outside, right? You step out in the sun and you can hear it crackling on your skin or whatever, but but also
Like a vampire.
yeah, it's pretty bad. But also, my house has been staying cool, so it's much more enjoyable summer this year, which has been nice.
Oh, you struggled with that for
It's been since I moved in.
like
man,
the struggle was real.
Evidently, they
for a
just
minute.
don't insulate the houses here like they're supposed to. And
It's
I
only
guess-
Texas.
Yeah,
Why do you need insulation?
You guys don't get cold or hot, right? It's not a big deal. So.
Yeah, the swings in temperature over a year are not that big in Texas.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God. Which, by
You
the way,
guys
for
get,
those
like,
of you
ice
that don't know,
storms.
that's why our bourbon is so good in Texas, because you can age a bourbon for 4 years and you get the flavor profile that you get out of like a Kentucky bourbon that's been in for 15, 20 years. So anyway, because of our temperature variations so much. So
Really?
yeah,
I know that.
because that's what imparts the flavor on bourbon, right? Is the casks shrinking and growing for the temperature. That stuff is released into the bourbon, where we just have such a variation so rapidly and frequently that it does very quickly. But anyway, no, it's great. It's been great. I've been trying to figure out how to get the rabbits to stop eating my grass to the dirt. I've got these dang patches in the backyard where the rabbits just kind of hang out, which is fine. It's whatever. I know they're in there because the coyotes and the foxes aren't, roaming my yard because of the dog, but except they're literally eating my grass down to the dirt. So it's like I got patches all over the place, which is annoying, but whatever,
like a salad bar for them.
It really is. It really is. So.
Your glasses giving you trouble. Man, last podcast you did
dirty.
this. It's
Well,
like you
because
just rubbed your glasses in brown sugar water and put them on.
For those of you that don't wear glasses, you don't necessarily understand. But those of you that do, you know that if you get one little spot right in the middle of your glass, some of you, at least for me, it's the only thing I can see the entire time wearing my glasses. So it's very annoying and very important to me that I clean at least the parts I need to see out of, right?
yeah, absolutely.
So,
well, Hapa, we did something in prepping for this podcast that we have not done in quite some time.
yeah.
We actually found, and by we I mean you, actually found some news that we could talk about that met our very stringent requirements for the kind of crap we'll talk about on this podcast.
Right, yeah. I was actually really excited because I didn't expect to find anything, honestly.
You started hitting me up and you're like, here's a link, here's a link, here's a link. And we started realizing that we were going to get to have a podcast that was like we used to do them. When there wasn't an very divisive election pending.
Just a mess.
Right? And the news is all about that stuff.
Yeah.
We used to get articles about space exploration and the kind of stuff that we like to talk about. And this time you kind of came over the top and just like machine gunned.
Yeah,
like,
man.
Here's an article. Here's one. I was like, yeah, man, all right.
And there's additional topics, by the way, mind you. Like Seven and I have been kicking topics back and forth for probably the past couple days. And unfortunately, there's a couple that were like, well, we could do an entire podcast about that one topic if we wanted to. And we tend to try not to do that, I think, because Lord knows those of you out there listening or watching, we don't want to get you guys necessarily like bored hearing about one thing, out there. Plastic straws,
find 52
specifically.
different ways to say the same thing about specifically plastic straws.
2 hours. 2 hours. Plastic straws. Go.
It's not a marathon. It's a sprint.
Yes.
Yeah, we could do 2 hours on plastic straws.
For sure.
We could do 2 hours on several things. There's a subject that we don't have on the list for tonight. You and I were talking about it before podcast.
Yep.
I'm not going to mention it. But I'm warning anyone. There is a possibility that subject comes around the corner, bites both of us, and we don't shut up about it. So
yeah.
we're gonna make at least a half attempt to not talk about it.
For sure.
But boy, we got, and the thing about it is we have stuff we want to talk about so bad that we're not gonna hit stuff that is just the today stuff.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh my god, can you believe? So y'all should be proud of us. This is growth.
Well,
This
and
is
that
maturity.
was the thing too, is like I was like, we found actual articles, right? So I was like, I want to try to do actual topics, not just. But anyway, not that
and we got some good ones.
I'm definitely not an expert in anything. Let's just be honest. But
No, I'm really not.
I'm the guy that's sitting on the park bench downtown, screaming at the kids walking by. Damn kids! That's all I am. So.
Get off my pork!
Exactly. We're on the
Wherever
sidewalk,
you go, it's
sir?
yours. Yes, everywhere you go, get off my Walmart, you damn kids! Like wherever you go, you're yelling
I
at the
pay
kids to get off.
taxes.
My taxes built this Starbucks. I just
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much me. I think I'm
I need
at
a
that
video
point in
of-
my life now.
I need a video of you just standing on different corners all over the city, yelling at whoever is there.
You know how
to
crazy
get off
I would
your lawn.
people would be reporting to the news about this guy that they've seen all over Austin, just on street corners
off my
screaming
lawn!
at stuff.
Look, it's
That-
Austin though. It'd be
It's
like,
fine. It's fine.
oh,
It
yeah,
fits right in. It fits
that's
right
Hapa.
in. Yeah,
Everybody
that's
knows
Hapa.
Hapa.
Everybody knows him. Yeah,
What do you got a problem with him? Well, I got a problem with you then. You should have gotten off his lawn.
Right? Should have
You know
left him.
anything?
He pays taxes.
Don't you know he's a taxpayer? His buddy built this Starbucks.
And someone else goes down the line.
Why?
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. Here we are. Here we are.
This is us. Oh, so tonight at Hapa, we're going to be covering one of my particular favorites. I'm excited to talk about is Warner Brothers lost a bunch of money.
Surprise. Well, you know, and actually, I meant to do this. I didn't look up what they made on the game. I meant to look that up.
Let's do it.
Because
I'm going. We are going to dig on this. I am.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I forgot to look that up because did they really lose money? I mean, really? Come on. I doubt that they lost money. You know. But while he does that, this is episode 23, technically.
I don't know. Is it?
I believe so. We're season 2, episode 4. That's probably what I need to be doing. Is episode 5 of season 2. I'm way behind. Currant Events, which is 1.5 ounces of straight bourbon, half an ounce of vermouth di Torino. That's the sweet vermouth, by the way, if you didn't know. Quarter ounce of currant cassis. I don't even know what that is. I know when I used to bartend, we had that in a bottle. Never tasted it. No clue what it's made from. I'm assuming from currants, probably. And a couple dashes of bitters. It's a pretty sweet cocktail.
Sounds
They're not
Swedish.
too bad. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. It's pretty delicious. Anyway.
So, Suicide Squad. Okay, look, let's set this back up. If you go back and listen to our podcasts, which I really encourage you to do because they're unbelievable, and you will learn so much. You won't learn anything, but you will have fun.
You should
And
you
one
should
of the
have
things-
made it sound epic, like.
In fact, I am fairly certain the cure for all that ails the world is in our podcast.
I'm
somewhere if
just
you go back and
saying.
listen.
See, that's how you should
gotta
be
find
selling it. You should be selling it.
It's subliminal. We know it's there. No one's found it yet, but it is there.
We don't even know where it is. Let's be honest.
No, it's there. It's there. I'm sure of it. We talk about, I think, in fact, the last podcast, we went on about this game. And it was a game published by Warner Brothers Discovery, which is Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And for people who didn't get to hear that, we very much enjoyed that game. We played it in beta together, where you did the limited beta. We played it, we bought it and played it, and we had a blast playing this game. And I'll be honest, I found some of the things that the Warner Brothers CEO said in regards to that game, backing it up against Hogwarts Legacy, which they had made the year before, I found it shocking. And we kind of talked about that a little bit, but we didn't go too hard in the paint.
Yeah.
But now there is news out, and it's that here's the way the headline reads from IGN. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League spurs double-digit drop in Warner Brothers gaming revenue. So here we've got the headline, which comes off of quarterly report published by Warner Brothers and the CEO. And they're saying that one game has spurred a double-digit drop in Warner Brothers gaming revenue. Now, for the numbers, they marked this game off the last quarter as a $200 million impairment charge.
Okay.
In other words, the last quarter, we're reporting $200 million loss on this game. The total loss for the company was $10 billion. They have a net loss of $10 billion.
So you're the corporate guy. A $200 million loss. Do they take what it costs to produce said game minus what they made from people buying said game, and then that's how they figure that out?
Yeah,
or
an
are they
impairment
saying
charge-
we expect to make this amount of money, we didn't make it, so it's a loss?
They're not saying it's a loss yet. They're saying that, hey, this kept us from making as much money as we felt we would.
So in that case, is technically they may have not lost money. It's just what they anticipated or wanted to make. They haven't met that goal.
The way I understand that to work is next quarter, they will have to report on it again. And if it's still there, they will have to say it was a $200 million loss.
Okay.
So an impairment charge is like, we're not making the money we hope right here. It's like latent inventory.
Sure.
right? So we're not making the money we want right here. Then we also had $10 billion in losses outside of that. You guys have net $10 billion losses. So I'm going to rant for a second here, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to run through this. Hogwarts Legacy, which launched in February of 2023, sold 22 million copies in 2023 alone.
Okay.
Since then, so in other words, this year, it has reached 24 million. So it has it sold 2 million copies this year, a year and a half at this point after it launched. So 24 million copies for Hogwarts Legacy. Now, Hogwarts Legacy is legitimately one of the better games
Yeah.
in a long time. And it is the best game, in my opinion, Warner Brothers has ever launched. It is, however, a standalone game, meaning you buy the game, you play the game. It is not a live service game. You don't have to have a subscription to play it.
Right.
You don't have to continue to buy stuff. They don't release content for it every week, every month, right? It's a standalone game. The CEO of Warner Brothers came out and said, we don't want to do that anymore. And the statement was, we believe we only want to build live service games. We don't like the fact that we sold 24 million copies of this game at what, $70 a pop?
Which, by the way, is $1.68 billion globally.
There you go.
That's assuming that everybody paid $70 for it. I don't know price differences in different regions, whatever.
Give or take 20%, Colin.
And you and I talked about this too when that game first came out, because we were talking about how they had talked about they didn't want to do a live service game, and then they talked about wanting to do a live service game and not produce games like Hogwarts. To me, at what point do you admit that you missed the mark there?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm looking at an article from March the 20th, 2024. And a headline for this, also on IGN, says that Warner Brothers Games says it plans to double down on live service despite Suicide Squad failing to meet expectations. This is back in March. And the statement from JB Perrette was specifically targeted to Hogwarts Legacy when asked about it. It was the best-selling game in the United States.
Yeah.
For the year.
Yeah.
Right? Like
it was everywhere. It was everywhere. I saw it everywhere. Everybody playing it.
Who doesn't want to be the best-selling game in the country?
Yeah.
And here's the quote. That's a great business when you have a hit like Hogwarts Legacy. It makes the year look amazing. Unfortunately, we also have disappointments. We just released Suicide Squad this quarter, which was not as strong. It just makes it very volatile. Now, here is the real rub for me. And you and I went into this in detail in the last podcast about the live service games.
Yeah.
Chances are you're not that good at building a live service game.
Right.
Like there's only a few that are going to stick around forever. And yes, do those make a ton of money? Oh my God, yes. They make a ton of money.
Sure.
But it's hard to get right. And so they knowingly hamstrung Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League by saying it has to be a live service game. They never will ever release that whole game. The story, you'll never get the end of it.
Yeah.
Because they made an executive decision. A bunch of people walking around, CPAs, MBAs, whatever. Nothing. I don't even play video games. Right. This is the kind of people that run this stuff.
Right.
And this idiot walks around and he's like, "We're not going to do games like Hogwarts Legacy. It was the biggest game of the year." And this idiot's like, "Oh, we don't want to do any of that. We want live service games." Okay, cool. Well, here you are. And in March, this was March. It is now August, and we're talking about how much money they've lost. He knew this in March and was making those statements.
Sure.
He is so attached to the idea that they can do live service games that he's willing to lose $10 billion.
Do you think that's as a result of these people looking at other companies that are doing live service correctly and expecting their company that has never produced live service to just shift all of a sudden to doing this? Is that where
I think
this
so.
came from?
I think that well, let's do this. So we talked last podcast. Let's do this. Let's dig into live service a little bit.
Sure.
You and I,
We play a lot of live service,
met
actually.
a ton
Yeah,
of live service
yeah.
games, and some of them are very, very good. And in fact, most of the games we play together are live service games.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to predict the live service games that are going to work. And they are incredibly expensive to keep the server infrastructure,
Yeah.
all the things you've got to do. And for someone to say, I want to do live service games on the heels of something, a masterpiece like Hogwarts Legacy going out the door. In other words, your company is really good at something.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, change it. I think they just see the dollar signs
That's it.
and they think, oh, someone else has to figure out the
Yeah.
details.
Yeah. And you had so when you played Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, you could tell that the game was not complete when it got released. You could tell there were parts of the map that you would go into that were just empty. You had parts of the story that were empty. Like, it was not complete. So that tells me, like, the framework for all of, like, the entirety of the game is there somewhere. They just took a knife to the game and cut all this stuff out and said, this is quarter 3, this is quarter 2, this is quarter 1 next year, this is, these are the things we expect to have be successful. But you've never done this before, so you're, expect or inspect what you expect, right? Like, so if you don't know how to do something, you can't expect to just be 100% successful at it. You got games out there like Destiny, right? Destiny 2 is a good example of a live service game that they did it smart. You had the entire game out there and then DLCs that added entire parts of new game to said game. It wasn't oh, that's weird, I'm in this part of the map and it's just empty. Like, there's nothing here, I don't understand. That kind of thing.
Yep.
And then you have, like Destiny, again, the game is like 11, 12 years old. Like, that's a good example of a live service game that they did it right. Now, you'll hear me talk nothing but negative about them for the last couple of years because it just...
Right.
The way that they did the live service, shifting to PvP, because PvP was like the new hotness with the Call of Duty Battlefield crowd out there. That was how they grabbed them. They got rid of the story, which was arguably what made that universe so gripping, like grabbed so many people. But that's how you do it. You release an entire game so you could do a campaign and get it done, and have stuff that you're going to add on later. That makes sense. And
yeah,
it's sad to me that those devs probably, I'm sure there's people that were in meetings that were said this is not going to go well. I'm sure ahead of that.
quality. Let's be clear about Suicide Squad. That game was funny.
Yeah.
The story that was there was very well written. The voice acting was amazing. And the concept was on point. I don't care what DC fans are like, it's not canon, it can't be canon. I don't care.
Yeah.
I understand that that's one of the things they do or don't like about it. I got it. I'm saying I don't care.
Yeah.
So to me, the game was a ton of fun. And you get to the end of it, and it's like, oh, yeah, there'll be more stuff later. Good luck. And we left and never went back. And, it's the end of this article. I'm going to read this. And you can't make this stuff up. WB's subscription services were up 3.6 million from last quarter, bringing its total to 103.3 million. This is the first time the company has passed 100 million subscribers. Okay. They are so sold out on we must have subscribers. We want MRR. That is monthly recurring revenue.
Yeah.
That they are sacrificing $10 billion in losses and saying, yeah, but we got more subscribers. If I'm an investor, if I'm a shareholder, and I am not, full disclosure, if I am, the question has to be asked. I don't care about your 100 million subscribers if it loses money.
Yeah.
This is what it's like to be a publicly held company.
Yeah.
I don't care. Oh, we have 100 million subscribers. Okay, you're on the wrong path and you're an idiot.
Yep.
That's what I'll tell you. You're releasing masterpieces and saying you don't want to do it anymore.
Right.
You help me understand why you're saying, Mr. MBA guy, why you're telling me what I don't want to do is what we're good at. Okay, here's the thing. You're so addicted to smelling your own farts that you think you're always right.
Yeah.
And it absolutely infuriates me to watch, because something you just said, when you look at Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, and the quality of work that the artists and the game there are people in that studio who gave their life for that game for some amount of years to make it come to reality. And they got so close, except the executives like, nah, cut some out of it so we can get subscribers.
Yeah.
What is wrong with people, man?
So you and I have talked about that before, I think a few times, honestly, how, people don't think about in games. I don't blame a developer for content failures. I don't blame them for that.
Yeah, right.
Because
full disclosure, you worked in the gaming industry.
Yes,
you have some.
Yes.
You can say this. Yes.
I feel bad saying that I have experience, because I feel like I really don't. But I did see a lot of the stuff that we talk about on the podcast on a regular basis out there in online. And to me, I don't blame devs for choices, because I promise you there are meetings, there are, because there's always meetings where they show you the content before the release, so you kind of get a feel for it. You see the rough, drafts of things, and things will look amazing. And there's always somebody that's like, put that till next quarter. Like, we don't need to worry about that for till next quarter. Or something that isn't ready being pulled forward just because that's their pet project and they want it released early, and it's not done. And it's like the dev literally could say, it's not quite ready yet. Like, we need a little bit more time. Nope, get it done. Release it. That it needs to be released. All right, but it's going to be a mess, and they don't care, because they're not the ones that have to do the work, working 12, 14, 15-hour days trying to get the code right so it's not, crashing games or whatever. And I've seen that in so many games too over the years. You can tell when games are rushed out to meet deadlines.
Oh yeah.
Right?
100% you can.
I have no equivocations, and I do not get upset when a studio says we're going to roll back our release date because the game's just not quite ready. Which
I respect that.
Perfect example is Warhammer's new squad-based shooter that's going to be coming out. Okay, Space Marine 2. It got rolled back twice, I think. I think it was supposed to be released early this year. And right away they moved it back to mid-year, and now they finalized September is going to be the release date, because they said they were trying to not do the IP wrong. They were trying to make sure the content was correct, and they're trying to make sure the game is where they want it to be, which I'll have all the respect for that. Unfortunately, overwhelmingly, majority of players out there of games don't give a crap about any of that. They don't literally care. Like, they want their whatever right now, and that's unfortunately why a lot of live service games, I think, have become successful, because spending money has become like the easy button in games. Like, yeah, you could play the game and get stuff, or you could just hit the easy button and spend money. And companies know that. So they're like, put it in the game, behind a paywall, we'll make money. Period.
Yeah, no, it's fair. It's have you ever seen... Did you ever watch the show Mythic Quest? You and I have talked about this.
I'm horrible with names. Let me see.
Mythic Quest. Yeah, if you haven't, in particular, that's a show you have. I have to get your
I don't
take on
think
that
so.
show.
I don't think so. I'll have to see it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's the Always Sunny in Philadelphia folks making a show about a game studio loosely based on Blizzard.
Oh,
and
fair. Yeah.
Funny is not really the right word. It's very funny, but some of it's a little too on the nose. And they have a monetization guy, and the moments that he comes up and he's like, "What if we did this and sold it?" And it's just like, my God, you're a slime ball. You're skeezy.
Yeah.
And everyone accepts it because that's the job of monetization. And every company that makes games should get paid to do so, and they should get paid well to do so. Games, to me, and you and I have talked about this probably on the podcast before, but several times, I consider games the highest art form.
Yeah.
I don't think we understand yet just how impactful games can be, but I'm a musician, right? The only scholarship I was offered out of high school was an art scholarship, right? So art is a thing to me. And watching in particular music as my life went on, watching label executives make the decisions for bands.
Right.
Label executives who really didn't care much about music, honestly.
Yeah.
It was just the thing they sold. Making artistic decisions for bands ruins bands all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you see the same thing in something like gaming, I really wish Warner Brothers Discovery would just get out of the business.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't like,
Well,
if you're like, hey, I looked at Hogwarts Legacy, we released the biggest game of the year. It was staggeringly good.
yeah.
And you're like, I don't like that. Okay, you might not need to be in that business. And
You
stop
literally
buying up
made
studios.
almost $2 billion. That's billion. What is that? 12
Yeah.
zeros? Is that 12 zeros?
A lot of zeros, man.
That's a lot of zeros, bud. Like, and then you're gonna say, nah, that's not the direction we want to go. Like, are you? But here's the problem too. Let's say Warner Brothers is like, yeah, we're gonna pack it up. We're gonna pack it up, pack it in. We're done. We're done. You got other companies out there that are just as sleazy. Like, look at Bungie.
100%.
Bungie's a perfect example. We're shutting down Destiny 2, boys. It's been going for 12 years. We think we've got our money from it. Go ahead and lay off 220 people, right? And then you got another game, which we're going to talk about later, called First Descendant, that gets released. That for those of you that love Destiny, I highly
we
recommend.
definitely don't talk about this one.
Yeah, highly recommend First Descendant because it will hit that itch, that Destiny itch, right? And that's a live service game, mind you. It's got microtransactions, most of which are just cosmetics, so you don't need to spend any money on that game at all if you don't want to. But the First Descendant was so successful that Bungie saw what it was, saw it's being successful, and made the decision that they weren't shutting down Destiny, that they were in fact going to keep Destiny live for, I think they said 2 more years. So now what are you going to tell those 220 people that worked on the team, including some executives that you laid off? Oh, by the way, Bungie's CEO went out and spent $12 million or something like that on cars. He just went out and threw cash at the face of car dealerships while saying, oh, we're hurting for money, so we got to lay off 220 people. Like, all these companies are just dirty, like just straight up dirty.
This is part of when I talk about Warner Brothers. Maybe I should tell everybody the studio that made this is Rocksteady.
Right.
And that doesn't mean anything to you. They aren't
small.
These people made the Arkham games.
Yes.
Those are some of the best standalone video games.
Yeah, yeah.
Superhero
Amazing
games ever made.
stories.
Oh, they're unbelievable games.
Yeah.
They're very good at this. And you
Yeah.
were like, you know what you need to do? Live service. Took a puff on your cigar and walked out of the room and
Yeah,
thought you made $1
yeah.
billion. No,
Yeah.
you lost $10 billion.
Yeah.
And you deserved it.
Do you think that decision came solely from this freaking old guy that's never played games, seeing other studios that have been successful at live service for years and saying this is what we have to do? We have to.
I would
ship
tell
to this?
you, given what Rock Studio had made, I would find it hard to believe that anyone at Rock Studio said, I want to release a partial game just so I can get subscriptions and charge
Jesus,
people for the full game. They did the amount of work they had done when you look at the Arkham series of games,
right?
In deep storytelling and releasing complete games, like that is how they operate. It reminds me of Larian Studios. We talk about this with Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
The CEO is like, we're going to make complete games, right? Yes, I get the live service thing. I understand, but that's not what we do. What we do is make these.
Yeah.
And they get paid handsomely to do so. And I would be very surprised if anyone at Rocksteady was like, we really need to change our entire formula.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the move here.
Oh my God. And it's sad to me that you got these people that are making these decisions while sitting there and watching games like Baldur's Gate or Helldivers
100%.
or these games that have been getting released that are contrary to what they think is important be hugely successful
100%.
and then still making that decision. Like, how disconnected are you? How really disconnected are you from
Well, I mean, that's a
everything?
great example, Happy. You said Helldivers 2.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic example. The studio set out to make a live service game. That's where they started.
Yep.
And they made by all accounts, a very good one.
Yeah.
Very good one. And here comes Sony.
Sony, excuse the language, fucked it up. They fucked it up for the studio, the small studio.
The distribution company.
Yep, that did the work to produce a game like Helldivers. The only thing I can think of in that realm was Sony was jealous of this little studio that produced this gem that was immensely successful. Now, guess what? You got people that weren't even burned by Sony's scoffed distribution, like requirements and what have you, that aren't playing Helldivers anymore because of just how
100%.
skeevy it is.
Because of the skeezy feeling
Yeah.
of it.
So
100%.
you not only lost customers outside of or in those countries that Sony decided we just aren't going to distribute your game anymore, even though some of them already bought the game and had been playing it.
God.
Right? Oh, and we're not going to offer you a refund either, by the way. But you're also losing people that bought the game, had been playing the game like crazy, that saw that and was like, no, I'm not going to participate anymore. And again, that goes back to what we talked about. That poor dev that's, Joel, the guy that everyone knows
Good
in
old
Helldivers,
Joel.
that really affects him because, he doesn't have the impact or the happiness going on that he had at the height of the game. Like, come on, man,
I'm a good example there, Happy, because you had been playing that game and a crew of people, right, that
Yeah.
we commonly play games with and hang out with. You'd been playing that game, and you had been telling me for weeks, you got to get this game, got to get
Yeah.
this game, got to get this game. I think I had a weekend coming up where I was going to be available, and I'm like, I'm going to no-life this thing and check it out. That was the week that the stuff with Sony went down. That did not impact me. I could have still played the game, but I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? I am not going to give those skeezy mofos another $1.
Yeah. I'm not
They're
gonna
getting
lie.
nothing from me.
We haven't gone back. I haven't played it. I've logged in and just looked at the game, but I haven't played it. I just maybe I'm a fair weather gamer. I don't know, but like when stuff like that happens, it just kind of I move on quicker than I might from another game. It's just faster, I don't know. I think it's fairly sad that you have people on the board of directors of a lot of these companies that could be producing amazing gems of product that are just ruining it because they see dollar signs. That's it.
Let me throw something your way real quick. Baldur's Gate 3 to
Yep.
me is the pinnacle of we launched a game, we sold you the game. They've said we're not doing DLCs and live.
Yeah.
We're not doing it.
Yeah.
We made a game. It is way big, like it's huge.
Yeah.
And they laugh about it's a meme. The game is so big and complex and crazy and well done. How many people? And this is what was it launched? Let me see. When was this game launched? Okay, great, a year. Okay, so it was launched on August the 3rd, 2023.
Wow, it's been that long already.
Right, so a year. How many people right now who bought the game through Steam do you think are playing? A year in of a game that is a single player, a co-op single player game.
I mean, the numbers would usually be historically dropping like crazy, but I'm at 10 million.
But right, well, 10 million because I'm playing right this second. I mean,
Oh, I
live.
can't even guess that.
72,000 people right this second are playing that game.
Yeah. How many of those people have played
72,000
through
people.
the game a couple times, maybe?
Oh, it's the replayability, the completeness of the game.
Well, because that
the
game's like a
story,
choose-your-own
people
adventure,
keep-
right? Like that's a legit like
Yeah, 100%.
choose-your-own adventure
Like
kind of game.
every time you make a choice, it's
Yeah.
it's the old school, RPG style game. And
Yeah.
I've traditionally not been into those games. I never played the board games or the tabletops.
Yeah.
I've never done that. But that game was just so good. And I had played Divinity Original Sin 2, which was by the same studio, and was like, oh my God, this is an amazing
Yeah.
experience. And if you just want to veg out and play a game and have a great story, it is as good as it gets. But the fact that they can launch a game, 72,000 people are playing it right now, and the people within that don't care about the games, but they care about the money, are going to look at that 72,000 and they're going to say, why am I not making money off those people right now?
And that's
rather than saying,
the problem.
oh my God, people are enjoying my game, they would say, how do I get money from those 72,000 people? Man, you know what? Screw you. Screw you.
Well, and to be fair, I'm okay with that thought process. How do I make money from this when it's a game that's already been out for 2 years, let's say, right? Like, perfect example, World of Warcraft, EVE Online, like those games. By the way, 2 years is a drop in the bucket for those games. You're talking at this point, both those games are like nearing generational games, right? Like, like literally.
Games you can play with your kids.
Yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like literally, those are the games where the studios should be saying, "How can we make money from this?" Not you shouldn't be saying that the day before or months before you release a new title.
Yeah, before you've even put it out.
Yes.
And I think you brought out a good point, and we are really, we've got to move on. We're harping on this, and I will go on forever, so you're going to have to stop me. But like the Suicide Squad really did feel like, you made a really good point. It felt like the Rocksteady studio had a complete game in mind.
Yeah.
And someone came through and said, no,
up.
cut out this, and this. We don't want that. Take that mechanic out.
Yep.
And the people at Rocksteady were probably like, wait, what are you talking about?
A lot
take
of
it out because we want to make people buy it.
Yeah. A lot of it was arbitrary.
You get to the end of the game and it's like, congratulations, there'll be 7 more of these at some point.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, like what? What am I supposed to know?
Harley Quinn just shot Batman in the head. What are you talking about? 7 more of these?
Which, by the way, if you haven't, I mean, that cutscene is, you should just watch that on YouTube. It's freaking insane. Anyway.
I would actually recommend, that's a really good call. Screw paying for the game. Don't pay a dime for it. But go watch every cutscene on YouTube.
Their cutscenes are pretty freaking badass, not going to lie. From a Gotham DC level. Yeah, I don't want to set anybody off. I apologize. Lord, I apologize. But it's worth it. It's worth it. Anyway.
All right, so let's go into something more positive. Thank you for letting me rant about that. I have had feels about that.
Yeah.
I hate watching people ruin art. But let's
I
talk
hate
about
companies ruining the work that others diligently and lovingly do. Like, that to me is just
obsessively.
Sad. Yes, yeah.
I can't imagine sitting there working and someone comes in and says, hey, we just got the green light to do a Suicide Squad game.
Yeah.
Wait, what? And we have the license for Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern along with it.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And the Joker.
Yeah.
What? And you told me that, I would. You had me for 2 years. It just like I will. I'll code until I will rage code this game. Let's go. So, anyway. All right, Hapa. The next, I keep going, man. It just hurts me. This is your article. I'm gonna let you talk about it, but it's healthy coral beds. So you got some researchers that are feeling encouraged. They found some healthy coral beds. Tell me what you.
So to be clear, that this is something that's been talked about. Anybody that lives in that marine world, I don't obviously mean under the water, but if you live near beaches, you live in tropical areas, you're in the military, Navy, if you're in the maritime, Marines, whatever the case may be, you'll hear this talked about. This has been talked about going back as the first time I remember I thought about this, hearing about this topic was like in the 90s, because they were talking about coral beds, the barrier reef and what have you, those coral beds getting bleached out. Bleached out meaning not literal bleach, but the temperature of the water is getting so high that those coral beds are unable, the reef beds are unable to maintain life. The coral is dying, and literally what happens is with the organisms and everything in the ocean, that coral, those reefs essentially turn into stone. And so they get bleached out, they die off. So a lot of environmentalists, that's been what they've been screaming. Here we are 30 years later since I've started hearing about it. I remember when I was in the Navy, I took a scuba diving tour. I remember the girl telling me they were estimating by 2001 there was going to be no Great Barrier Reef and there was going to be no live coral in the world. And then I heard 2005, and then 2010, and then 2015, and so on and so forth. And so it's been an ongoing thing. Now, I have no scientific basis behind this thought process, but I just thought, well, if the temperatures are rising in the ocean, it would make sense to me that that coral would move, right? Because its seeding blooms go with the current. So to me, I would think that when they release their seeds and what have you in the ocean, yes, I'm attempting to avoid the sexual terminologies for those of you out there that are screaming at your speakers.
Rita.
But in my mind, I thought, well, it just makes sense that they would move somewhere. You know, they would go with the temperature change. And here we are at 2024. Healthy coral beds have been found off the coast of Florida in areas that they did not anticipate to have found them. And healthy and thriving coral beds, mind
Great.
you. And
that's super good news.
yes, and they were talking about it was an area that historically was too cold at one point, because the unfortunate thing about reef and coral wildlife is they have to sit in this median of temperatures.
Like
It's
a Goldilocks zone for water temperature.
Yeah, so, but here we are. They found it, you know, it was like a 5 to 7 mile stretch of coral that was growing and very healthy, and they had no idea it was even there. So,
Nature.
it's silly as all hell, but, you know, Jeff Goldblum had it right when he said, you know, nature finds a way. It really does. Like,
Yeah, life finds a way. Yes,
yeah,
it does.
life finds a way. It really does. You know, it'll find
Life
a way
finds a
after
way.
we're gone as
Jeff
well.
Goldblum,
so,
man.
Yeah,
Do you know that's the third Jurassic Park reference I've heard today? That's bizarre.
that's a little
Why
weird.
are people?
Maybe that's a sign.
It is. Why are people talking about Jurassic Park to me?
Maybe it's a sign. Maybe you should be going back and watching.
Maybe
And
I
later
should. I
they're
like the
screaming and running and
I do like the movies. I am excited about the coral though. We don't need our oceans to die. That would be
oh no,
that's
yeah.
a bad thing.
Yeah.
Right. We don't want that. And I think as humans we are doing a very poor job of being environmentally responsible. So I don't care if you have hardline viewpoints one way or the other there. I'm not talking about that. I think that I still see people throw trash out their windows while driving a car. Right?
Yeah.
Like there's baselines that everyone could just participate in to be better. And for me, living where I live, one of the most biodiverse places in the country, I kind of want it to stay nice, right?
Yeah.
And naturey and not polluted. I grew up in a place where, and I remember this was the 80s, right? And I grew up and there's this creek and played in the creek. That's what you did. And I remember when it turned purple and all the animals died.
Yep.
And started smelling weird. And that's not a good thing. That area is now being honest, that area is now rife with families who have lost 6 and 7 kids to cancer.
Oh my god.
Right? Like, so we got to do better. And when you
Yeah.
have some nice news, like someone coming out and being like, "Oh my God, we found coral where we
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
expect
yeah.
to find it." Like, yeah, cool. Let's do more of that. And good on you for finding an article about something happy for once.
There are companies out there, by the way, that are doing good in that respect. There's a company in the Hudson River Valley that has been, it sounds silly, but doing something as simple as planting oyster and clam beds. And a lot of people don't realize, but oysters in bivalves is what they're called, right? They filter water, and the amount of
Yep.
toxins that they could filter is insane. And so the Hudson River Valley is a perfect example of what you're talking about, because it was a place where companies just were like, oh, you know, the lead paint factory, all of our waste, we're
Yeah.
just going to pump into the water. It's fine. We'll pump into the
Yep.
Hudson. It's not a big
Yep.
deal. And you're talking
Yep.
about, there is actually documentation and documented like news articles of the Hudson literally being on fire. The river itself was on
The water?
fire. Yes, because it was so toxic. And I won't go into politics, but there is a gentleman that is pretty big into politics right now that he ran an environmental law firm that sued a lot of those chemical companies along the Hudson River Valley and got a lot of that fixed, and then other companies that went in and literally planted oyster and clam beds. I also don't know if you know, back in the early 1700s all the way through the early 1800s, a lot of, if right off the docks, they literally had piles of oyster shells, like literally as tall as buildings, because oysters were so plentiful. They would literally, you know,
They were just killing them.
they were killing them, ate them, throwing the shells. And that's how many oysters were in that valley. That's how crazy it was. And we're getting back to where, not probably there, that back then, but the amount of toxins and, gross stuff in the water has just dropped off the scale because they've been doing this to clean up the water. And it's like, people don't realize the majority of the oxygen on the planet, the majority of the cooling on the planet, a lot of the biodiversity on the planet all comes from the ocean. So if you don't have biodiversity in the ocean, guess what? You probably are not going to have too much of it on land. Like, it just isn't a thing. So
There's a thing going on here over the past couple of weeks. I walked out of the office, and I have a truck, and it's black. And I walked out, and there was an interesting new dust on it. And so we have pollen all the time here. It is not the season for where we would have that.
Yeah.
And it was brown. I was like, what is this?
I already know where you're going with this.
It was a dust plume from the Sahara Desert.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think it would do people good to understand how this planet operates on that scale. So the Sahara Desert fertilizes the Amazon. And if that sounds crazy to you, you need to go learn.
It doesn't just fertilize the Amazon, right? It fertilizes the southern Atlantic. It fertilizes the Gulf. It fertilizes the Gulf Coast. It fertilizes most of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, all of our central states. Like, a lot of people don't realize that dust lends a lot of nutrients to. Think about the mileage there. Go look at Google Earth and look at the mileage there from the Sahara to the middle of the United States. That's where this dust plume went. And I think as far south as like the middle of Brazil or something like that. It's something crazy that this dust plume, and like Seven said, you could see the dirt, the sand, the dust on your vehicle. So it's not just little particles here and there. It's a lot. It's like 180 million metric tons or something like that of this dust in the air. That's crazy, right?
How the planet works, right? The planet has ways of cleaning and repairing itself. And if you look at it from that macro, you start backing up and look at it from the macro, the oceans start meaning a lot different things to you, right?
Yeah.
The forests start meaning different trees. They mean different things to you. And while I am definitely not, I'm not an environmental activist by any means, we could all be more responsible. And so I do think it was a good story I'm glad you put that on there let's go talk about this coral that's showing up.
I've always been
the planet
fascinated,
will heal itself.
Yeah, like that.
The planet will be here when we're gone. The only thing we're doing is deciding whether we stay here or not. The planet's going to be here.
Right. I don't want people to think like, oh, we don't need to worry about it because the Earth will heal itself. But it's like, no. Seven and I have had this conversation a few times. I'm not the type of person that I am not so vain to think that humans are the cause of the changes in climate, but we definitely have had an impact. You would have to be very ignorant to think that we haven't had an impact, right? Like, that's just silly to think that for a moment. So it would be fairly important, I think, to probably err on the side of I need to try to do better. Like, I think you've been in channel when my brother and I have talked about my dad. I vividly remember when I was young, my dad would change the oil on his car, and he'd walk out to the street where the mailbox was, and he had a spot right next to the mailbox where he poured motor oil for literally years. And to this day, I think I was very young. Like, I wasn't in school. This is one of the first memories. There's still no grass growing there. Like, like that kind of thing is we got to think about that stuff. And
Yeah.
and this is a good
think it's
topic
fun.
to segue into our fourth topic. I think maybe we should do that one first before the Boeing one.
Oh yeah,
maybe?
let's do that. Yeah, let's do that. Sure.
So this is something else that our friend Wes, him and his wife, Wes is a nautical engineer. I think I got that right. I'm sure it's some more intelligent topic or name than what I just gave it. But one of the things he talks about, and I've always said, the original green energy, nuclear power, is getting
Nuclear.
a little bit more attention now that we've recognized that solar and wind energy isn't exactly the powerhouse, pun intended, that we thought it would be. One of the greatest things I think to have happened in the last probably 50 years is some legislation was signed into give over $900 million. I might have got that wrong. It might be $900 billion. I'd have to look at the article again to help expedite.
It was an M.
It was
Yep,
a million.
just found it.
To help expedite and clean up the licensing requirements and update a lot of the technology and what have you to try to expedite the building and usage of nuclear power plants here in the United States. And to be honest with you, I think because of a lot of, nuclear power is scary, 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, we've had
Sure,
our accidents. You're talking what?
Fukushima.
Chernobyl was 60 years ago. Fukushima,
Yeah.
which, okay, Fukushima could have been helped, could it have not have, act of God kind of thing. But you definitely
There was an
probably-
engineer. There was an engineer saying,
Yeah.
"Do it this way.
Yeah.
or you're gonna have a problem."
You
And they're
gotta
like,
think-
Screw you, engineer. I don't want to deal with you.
Look, but people are very
I
smart.
want life service nuclear power plants.
Yeah, live source nuclear power plants. You got to think for one moment that my people are very smart. There's no way that they could not have engineered it to handle tsunami or earthquake, considering it was on an island
They had the ability
called
to.
Japan.
Right.
Right. Like,
Right. There was an ability. There was a movie about that. It was Godzilla, something like that.
Some may say a true story. No, it's just, but yeah. So
My kid loves Godzilla.
I really was excited, and I don't think I've heard enough about this. I'm hoping that we build nuclear power plants because, to be quite frank with you, I think it's the only surefire way to produce enough power where people's power bills can possibly, I'll say, because it probably won't happen because greed is a thing, make people's power bills go down. Like,
Well, the truth, here's the truth. We are not going to need less energy tomorrow
Yeah.
than we needed today. I worked in power generation for a time, and one of the most fascinating things to me was the power trading system. So if you're talking about, say, Southern Company that operates in the Southeast United States and Tennessee Valley, right, the TVA. You're talking about those two companies, they trade electricity back and forth on a grid live because, hey, it was hotter than we expected, or it was colder than we expected, whatever the case may be. And that is what keeps, from a defense standpoint, you want the grid to operate. But also, these companies can generate and share electricity.
yeah.
That's out of necessity because you can only generate so much electricity, and the demand is always going to be more than you can generate. And more coal plants ain't it.
Yeah.
Hydro, we have some great hydroelectric plants here. There's issues with that. Wind and solar are just not going to keep up with the kind of demand we're talking about.
Yeah.
So looking for new ways to do it that not coal, I'm kind of here for.
Not coal, not carbon. I mean, zero carbon footprint power. I think it's
Yeah.
the only one that you're going to be able to produce without immense side effects. I mean, people don't realize the impact that solar and wind power has. Okay, little bit of backstory. I actually planned on getting a job doing repair and maintenance and maintaining of wind power, all those giant windmills you see when you go on long road trips. I actually had interviews with companies to do this job because I was already working on advanced electronics and had a lot of the qualifications they needed, including, you know, going up really high on these things and all the safety stuff and safety courses and all that stuff. I ended up not doing it, but as a result of that, you know, I did probably more research than most people would do into a career field, because I have to have the buy-in for me to do the job. It's just the way I work. And one of the things was I discovered the insane impact on the environment that these windmills have. People don't realize, like, those blades only have they have a shelf life. And when I say shelf life, I mean on the windmill itself. They can only be on there for so long, and then they have to decommission them. Well, how do they decommission them? Surely they recycle them or do something else with them, right? No, they literally unbolt them and they go to a landfill, and that's it. Oh, and by the way, they're coated in special paint, which is meant to repel weather, which means it doesn't break down as fast underground that you might think. Oh, by the way, they're made from a special fiberglass composite that also doesn't break down. So now you've got landfills filled with all of these blades stacked up on top of each other, just sitting in there. No, they're not doing anything, right? You got landfill there. Oh, by the way, migrating birds flying through these huge wind farms are just getting wrecked because they can't they don't know what the hell this giant blade that's swinging in the air is, right? Like,
poor birds, man.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. It's like, my grandpappy used to fly this path. You're just
And
flying along,
swack.
telling you, thwap.
I'm telling you, like, like, it's just nuts. Same thing with solar farms. They do, you know, they take up huge amounts of land. They displace wildlife. Some of the ones that do refractive solar, so it's literally the sun's collected and then refracted, that's really hard for me to say, by mirrors down to solar panels. Those have been known to fry wildlife because it's literally a prism. It's meant to magnify basically the sun, so it's known to kill wildlife while displaced, like, just on and on and on and on and on. And I'm not saying nuclear power is perfect, but it's about damn near perfect as you can get. Like, you know, the only thing
there's no good way to maintain this level of consumerism.
Correct.
Like, having said that, there is no perfect way to maintain the level of consumerism that we have come to accept and honestly want.
Yeah.
There's no perfect way to do it. Nuclear is not a bad option.
Yeah, and these new
the
power
available.
plants, they don't use the same cooling techniques that the old ones do. The old power plants used high pressure water to cool the reactors. And the problem with that is, anybody that knows anything about, you know, pressurizing water, that's not good. It's, in fact, kind of explosive. You know, it has side effects you don't necessarily want. These new reactors use liquids that are significantly lower temperature to cool these reactors, and so there's significantly less side effect. Now, again, is it perfect? Probably not. Is it going to reduce my power bill? Probably not, because companies are greedy, you know?
Yeah.
But maybe, just maybe, when it's 110 degrees out in the middle of summer here in Austin, we won't be told that we might have rolling blackouts because the power grid can't keep up.
Yeah, that's the thing. I didn't think about that as far as the story goes, but that is something that you have dealt with over the past couple of years, for sure.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and before anybody's like, oh, Texas's power grid is crap, blah, blah. Look, I implore any state in the United States specifically to have such an explosion in population over the last 6 years, think for 1 second that they can keep up with infrastructure, keep their infrastructure growth up with the growth of population. Like, that challenge is real. Like, it's no joke.
And the only way Texas, you can't let Texas off the hook, right? Because the only way that gets handled elsewhere is through the sharing of electricity that I was describing earlier. And so, additionally, Austin specifically, right? It's pretty unprecedented for Texas amount of growth in one spot very rapidly. And it's not, I mean, look, electricity is not the only issue, like traffic, all the other things, like it's water, right? It's all an issue when you have that many people suddenly be in a spot that weren't there before.
Yeah.
And again, like back to the point, like generating enough power for people to do the things that we like to do. And especially when we've got a lot of people saying, I want electric vehicles, I want to use electricity for things I wasn't previously using it for,
Right.
like moving myself to and from an office building every day or whatever the case may be.
Sure.
We're using a lot more electricity than we've ever used. Everybody has a device in their hands now that uses electricity every day. Right? We are increasing
in your
our
house.
electrical needs
Yeah.
significantly. I mean, look behind me.
Yeah.
If you're watching on YouTube, I use electricity, right? Like for all these things. Like so, it's funny because this right here is a Hammond XK1C organ that replaced my Hammond B3, which is in the other room, which is a mechanical, right? And this is electric. And so like the whole world, even of music, has moved to this is an 88 key Yamaha that replaces a piano, right? Like we have replaced almost everything with something that runs off of electricity.
Yeah.
And that's going to continue. And if we want to have more coral, right, and we want to be better to our planet, we have to find ways to generate that electricity that doesn't hurt the planet. We also have to find ways that don't turn out to be Fukushima and Chernobyl.
Right.
Right. Like
I don't know. It was very. I'm hopeful because it's the first time in like 50 plus years or something like that in this country at least we've had some kind of legislation that has given the power companies some kind of idea that they should try to go back to tried and true nuclear power. Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like, let's do this. You know, to give you guys an idea, when I talk about how much the population here in Texas, case in point, has grown, when I moved into the town that I moved into, the population was 22,000 people. That was 4 years ago. I passed the sign just the other day getting groceries, 122,000 people.
Yeah.
100,000 people have moved to my little town
growth
in 4 years. That's insane. Like, insane.
That's not normal. And people don't realize, you know, we've got a few places in the country. Nashville is another one that's had a similar boom. So, and then you have some places that are losing folks, right? But at the end of the day, I was looking at something the other day about the Austin building market, you know, for industrial and commercial buildings. And the amount of construction there is mind-boggling.
Oh, downtown,
the
there's
infrastructure
just
that goes
cranes
into that
everywhere.
is crazy.
Yeah, there's just cranes everywhere they're building.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you've got to serve that electricity, right? Every one of those buildings wants electricity.
And by the way, commercial gets priority. If you guys don't realize that, commercial gets priority over residential. So if things really get rough, they typically will do the rolling brownout blackouts on your house before they do on the grocery store down the road. Like, so hospitals are always first priority or whatever. Yeah. But anyway, that's
hospital. Sure.
I'll get off my soapbox. But hopefully, you know, nuclear power, brand new technology, 50 or 60, 70 years old, you know, maybe it'll save us. Hopefully, who knows?
The brand new nuclear, they call it
nuclear.
So this last subject we have right now listed, it's an interesting segue from what we just talked about because I think it is in ways related that I want to try to not get too political about, but I want to talk about. But NASA is saying that chances are growing that a couple of astronauts that are right now stuck on the International Space Station are going to not take their Boeing Starliner ride home and are going to have to be ferried home at the end of September by SpaceX.
So they did say September because originally it was February.
Well, the SpaceX, the nearest SpaceX would be end of September. And I think they would have to adjust the mission.
I read February. That was if they sent another Starliner or whatever up to them.
Oh, could be as long as it could be up until February. So they're like the earliest we're going to be able to get them if this thing doesn't work is SpaceX stepping in and being like, cool, let's send a thing up there to get them. And man, I have some strong opinions about this, but I'd love to hear. It's Boeing, right? So the Starliner is Boeing, and Boeing is just talk about another CEO who has just
A company that is.
fallen asleep at the wheel, right?
Can
The
we-
organization.
Did you hear why? Let's talk about why first.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So the Starliner, they found seals that weren't sealing correctly. They couldn't figure out why, and it was on the engines. So the jet engines, the rocket motors, which, by the way, there's a little incident that occurred back in the 80s on a space shuttle called Challenger. Guess why that one broke up? Was because seals failed on the engines again. Now,
The SRBs, man.
the Boeing, isn't it crazy that a company as prevalent as Boeing
Yeah. Yeah.
is having issues providing a quality product through a government contract through NASA for something as important as knowing that you're ferrying lives point A to point B to the International Space Station. So you're talking a quote unquote public. This is it is right. It's a public project essentially because it's the government, right? What is running through these astronauts' heads right now?
I mean, they're not supposed to be up there long, right? And
This was a test flight. This was a test flight.
if they're gonna, what they're gonna do, or what they're talking about doing, is this Starliner, which is currently docked, and they're like, I don't know if it's safe or not, right? They're trying to
Right.
figure out, is this thing even safe to take back?
Right.
They may just cut it loose and send it back to Earth empty.
But I heard that they can't do
And-
that because it's the weight of the people in it is accounted for in the
Oh,
flight.
I think I think they're assuming they're going to lose it, right? So
Oh my God.
that would mean that 2 of the 4 folks that go up in September from SpaceX are going to be left there until February. That's how that's going to go. So they get the people that are there home
Ah, okay.
with
That's what
SpaceX,
I.
but 2 of
okay.
the people, right? Because they only got 4 seats. The 2 of the
Right.
people from the SpaceX flight would be like, I got to stay till February, and they were not planning on. I mean, they probably had dinner plans.
Well,
3
yeah.
nights later.
I had read somewhere that because it was supposed to be a test flight, like they packed. They didn't bring clothes. They didn't bring anything with the expected length that they were going to be up there, right? Because weight is a huge, deal when it comes to space flight. So now you got these guys that are supposed to be. They were only supposed to be up there a couple weeks or something like that. It was supposed to be a very short
Yep.
trip.
Right. It's a couple weeks. Yeah, something like that.
At what point do we
And-
start auditing NASA, like safety for NASA? Like, come on,
You
guys.
know, Hapa, I have some real thoughts here, and I'm going to try to be as careful as I can be. But I remembered back during the Obama administration when Barack Obama made some announcements about how NASA funding was going to go. And I think he was at the Kennedy Space Center when he did it.
Yeah.
And I remember very distinctly, this is where he canceled, kind of, administration-wise canceled a lot of the programs
Sure.
that NASA had
Yeah.
in flight to go to Mars, to do a bunch
Yeah,
of things we
yeah.
were going to do. And it was like, we're going to increase the budget. I remember it. It was, we're going to increase the budget. We're canceling all these programs. And the thing about that is when that happened, there were a lot, and this was the privatization, by the way. That was the plan. This is when we
Sure.
first said, you know what, we're not going to do it as a government. We're going to privatize this stuff out. We're going to get rid of the shuttle program. We're going to do, right, we're going to go pell-mell down the road of letting
Yeah.
companies decide whether
Yeah.
we get to space or not. And when that happened, the amount of people, so I live not too far from Huntsville, Alabama, right? Houston is the thing.
Yeah. Yep.
These towns started losing rocket scientists to other countries,
Yep.
right? Because NASA was, what those people hear is your stuff's going to be canceled.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about top tier rocket scientists. We don't make them every day.
Nope.
Now, we had spent since World War II collecting them and being the leader because we were using taxpayer dollars to actually fund something that didn't blow up bridges, which was
Right.
NASA.
Yeah.
And there's a whole segment of people who are like, oh, hell no. My money only goes to blowing up bridges.
Yeah.
And one of the few things we have which revolve around peace and exploration, we don't want to fund it. And I remember thinking then, do you really think companies are just going to act right about this?
Correct.
That is where, and Elon Musk was actually part of this announcement, by the way, back when Obama was there.
Yeah.
And this is how SpaceX got started. Government dollars.
Yep.
That's where SpaceX came from. So our tax dollars are still going
Yep.
to SpaceX, except now this guy's getting a $56 billion bonus from his other company that apparently he can run just part-time while he tweets and runs whatever he runs, right?
Right.
So our tax dollars are still going there, but we're stranding people in space.
Yes.
This is an unacceptable state of affairs for the United States government to be in when we're like, we're going to send the people up and we just don't know how we're going to bring them back. That is unacceptable.
Now you say all that, but here's the thing: I'm okay with tax dollars going to private companies if they're doing stuff like SpaceX is doing, though. SpaceX has not.
SpaceX. Your point. SpaceX is the only one that seems to be actually getting it done.
But
yeah,
what I'm going to get at in terms of that is how many issues has Boeing products had in the last, let's just say, 5 years, okay?
Yeah.
How many issues has Boeing product had that has not been reported on? How many issues have Boeing products have had that may have been mishaps because of the product, but were explained away, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now you have a company, Boeing, getting taxpayer dollars to provide essentially a substandard product to the government, where we put military folks on board, because our astronauts, by the way, for the most part, are military folks that are the best of the best, and being strapped on top of a giant tube of explosives and launched into space, essentially, right? I think that's the main reason why I'm okay with taxpayer dollars going to like a company like SpaceX, because if SpaceX fails, that hurts their bottom line, right? They have the possibility of losing quite a bit of money, so they've got a bit more buy-in, pun intended, probably, to be successful. Whereas Boeing has proven that they can have a failure-ridden product and still get those contracts. They're still getting money from the government. They're still getting money from...
100%.
You know what I mean? So it just blows me away that that's where we're at. Like, that's where we need to look at things, because there was a time where Krantz walked into the conference room with a pile of stuff in 3 guys' arms and said, "You guys need to figure out how to get these guys back from the moon after a catastrophic failure using only what's on this table. Make it happen." Right? Not this crap where, when you go back to Discovery breaking up upon re-entering, where it comes out to find out the engineers straight up said that they honestly believed that it was good. They had a higher chance that it was going to break up in flight than make it back. They knew that.
Yep. Yeah.
But here we are. Like, what are we doing? Like, what the hell is that?
What are we doing? I mean, like, Boeing is a great I mean, to me, Boeing, you're talking about Boeing. Boeing's a fantastic example of, like...
fallen from grace.
And at what point, I mean, your doors are flying off airplanes mid-flight.
Yes.
Like, at what point do we sit down and say, I don't think you guys can do what we thought you could do, and we're just going to reevaluate?
Right. We need to take a step back and have a conversation.
Yeah, I think that we need to take a step back, because I don't know that I'm comfortable with you putting people in space. Right?
Multiple whistleblowers, offing themselves, quote unquote, and
falling out of windows.
Oh my gosh! Come on, guys! This is...
I'm frustrated by it. This one frustrates me because I am such a nerd for... I mean, I'm the guy that went to space camp twice growing up.
Sure.
It was all I wanted. We didn't have a lot of money, but my parents scraped together enough money, because it's the only thing I wanted all year, to get me space camp twice in my life. And Like, I really care about this stuff because it's a government, NASA's a government agency, again, that doesn't promote violence.
Yes.
Right. And for a long time was cooperative with other countries that we weren't really that friendly with.
Yep.
Russia and the United States would go back and forth. And the scientists were the ones saying, hey, let's just put all the other stuff aside and let's work on being better humans as a species. And for us to, back in the Obama administration, I think Barack Obama did a lot of things good. I did a lot of things bad, right? Every president falls into that category, right? Good, bad, that's just the job. But that one in particular rubbed me the wrong way. And if not for Elon Musk, and I do not like Elon Musk, you know this about me.
Yeah.
I used to. I just think he's turned into, whatever. But he's the only one, his company, SpaceX, is the only company that we can now depend on to move back and forth. And I don't think when you sat down and you had the fever dream, if you're Barack Obama and that administration, of saying we're going to privatize this stuff, I don't think you meant one company.
Oh, I'm positive that was not, because look, the basis of a lot of capitalism is competition, right? So you had to have thought back then you're going to have a bunch of companies, maybe not a bunch, maybe a handful, that were going to rival each other, and they were going to basically make other one company and innovate more because of that competition, et cetera, et cetera. But we've talked at length a couple of the episodes about other companies that got contracts from the government that epically failed, and here you are. SpaceX is the amount of innovation that company has produced just on the reusable rocket front. That alone is insane. What they've done, and to see that company's growth, see the heavy lift rockets that they've gotten that are just recently they launched ones that were 2 times or 3 times bigger than the largest heavy lift rockets that we've ever had on. It's just insane. It's insane the amount of growth and technology that has come out of that company.
I saw a picture this week, in fact, of the Falcon engines.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be careful in how I talk about this because I have to be careful about how I speak about the Falcon engines. But I will tell you, there was a time when they were developing those engines and they were firing them once a week.
Sure.
And breaking them.
Yeah.
They knew they were going to break them. They were testing specific parts of it. They knew it was going to blow apart another part.
Sure.
Right? And so they were going through parts, firing these engines to make them better and better and better and better and better, and to iterate and get them better. And I saw this picture of where it was, and it's this huge engine with all these parts, and where it is now, and it's far more efficient, far more streamlined, far smaller, far lighter. It is hard to iterate on anything fast like that. It's harder to iterate on a rocket engine fast like that. It's harder to have the wherewithal to continue to do it because you believe it will eventually be successful. So credit to Elon Musk on being a driving force behind saying we will do it no matter what.
Yeah.
I will go find the money, I will find the funding, I will do the things, and we will do this. And they have reusable rockets. They have these Falcon engines that can push a very heavy payload and up into orbit and beyond, probably. And they're the only ones who legitimately have done it. Everybody else is still kind of in the we're toying with it space. Right? They're like, oh, we can do some stuff. These guys go to the space. They'll go to the space station and back over and over again. Yeah. But we're gonna have to pay them for it.
Yeah.
And with the reusable rockets, now we have one company that we depend on. We're not working with Russia anymore because for a long time, my God, we depended on Russia.
We were they were the ones shuttling everything back and forth.
We got rid of our shuttle program.
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, Russia, can you take us to the station and back it out? I remember thinking,
where is that? Where did we go to get there? Holy crap.
What just happened? I remember hearing that for the first time and thinking, what? You're going to send your astronauts to Russia? Because you got to think, you do that. They live in Russia for a time.
Yeah.
To get on the rocket, go and come back, and they were in quarantine, all the stuff.
Yeah.
What is this? And so, I think that was a very short-sighted decision. I think we're still feeling the effects of it. I still think that the privatization hasn't worked and won't until there's competition, to your point. I think real competition is what will continue to drive innovation. It will also drive probably irresponsible risk taking, right? That seems to,
Unfortunately, yeah.
cutting a corner to get ahead or whatever. So I'm really curious to see how it goes. But if anyone wants to write me in on the ballot,
Jesus Christ.
feel free. And if enough of you do it, I will fix this. The rest is going to go to hell in a handbasket. But this,
Yeah, this specifically, this one topic.
yeah, if you are a one issue voter on NASA funding, I'm your guy.
What upsets me is that you have people on the Boeing front. You have people that 100% have that they were saying this needs to be improved, or this needs to be looked at, or this needs to be slowed down to be understood better. And for whatever reason, the company just said, "Nah, just stick it on. Let's go." And
Yeah.
oh, and by the way, put bodies on the front of it, and we'll see what happens.
Put humans.
Yeah.
Put humans in there.
Because could you imagine if they were on their way back and it broke up on the reentry?
I don't know that we're ready. I was in school when, I don't know if people remember Challenger, but
I remember. I was very young, but I remember.
They know it happened, right? But the big deal with Challenger is that a school teacher was on board.
Yep.
And a bunch of school kids crowded around, me being one of them, a television, and we were going to watch Challenger take off because, oh my God, a school teacher is going to space.
Yeah.
And I will never forget that feeling. And the one thing I can say about NASA is they mean it when they say they want to avoid disasters. And they will go to almost any length to avoid it. And even they got it wrong.
Yeah.
I am not the kind of person who trusts companies to take that kind of care.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're ready for Boeing to kill a bunch of astronauts.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think Boeing's ready.
I mean, if you go back to even Discovery, breaking up on reentry, that wasn't the producer of the space shuttle's fault, right? That was, those shuttles had literally been doing the job since the early 80s. They were getting worn down. The materials probably needed updating, and the money was, they were unfortunately, like so many government wings that weren't producers of war, do more with less, was what they were told repeatedly. And probably that's what inevitably, holy crap, I can't speak, inevitably, what the cause of that was. I mean, really, because there were engineers after the fact that said, these tiles fall off the space shuttle all the time. They fall off the fuel tank all the time. It was never really a big deal. So it's, well, except that you're literally going multiple times the speed of sound, and then you're throwing even a small piece of foam in front of that bad boy is going to punch a hole straight through it. Like, come on, man. Like, the risk there, somebody made a decision that the risk was okay, and that was a bad risk, right? So
Yep.
I do think that whoever said, hey, sorry, y'all are stuck up there until we figure this out, I would rather err on the side of caution than to say, let's just
100%.
wing it and see what happens. Like,
Yeah, they call it the path of least regret,
Yes.
right? And we'll take the path of least regret. And if they got to be stuck up there, they got to be stuck up there. It is just a, in some ways.
or Columbia. Wait, was
You'd
it Columbia or
laugh
Discovery? I can never remember.
You'd laugh if it wasn't so sad, right? Like, oh, astronauts are stuck at the International Space Station. And
Yeah.
it's like, holy crap. Can you imagine being stuck on the International Space Station? No, I can't.
Yeah, thank you
I
for
can-
correcting me. That was Columbia, not Discovery. Because I remember seeing Columbia when I was on deployment. And we saw that on the news, like seeing.
Yeah,
it break
Discovery's
up on
in a
reentry.
museum in California right now, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
But anyway,
okay. Well, Hapa, we have our routine stuff that we talk about, and I
Yeah.
get pretty excited about this. And I am in particular excited about hearing some of your thoughts on a show that I'd recommended to you. So, what are you watching, Hapa?
so watching a few things.
Uh-huh.
we'll circle back to that, but one of them is
Don't you toy with me. You're toying with me. This is the second podcast in a row. You were toying with
I've
me.
been a big fan of Alton Brown for a long time. If you guys don't know Alton Brown, he's had a series of shows over the years on cooking. He breaks down a lot of the show, like a lot of the chemistry of shows, and that the main one was Good Eats back in the day. That was a show I think that started in '98 or '99, something like that, and went for all the way up till I think the last episode of the new ones was like 2021. But I've been watching that dude for years and years and years. I love, because I'm one of those people that's like, why when I go to add egg to a batter or something that's hot, do I need to whisk it really fast? I can't just pour it in and then whisk it after the fact. Well, the eggs will cook and then the kernels and makes a mess. Blah, 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 whatever. Anyway, but if I know the science of the thing, I understand
you
the science
actually
of the
care
thing.
about why it...
Yes.
No, I think that's cool too, yeah.
But that's my weird way my brain works, because I'll connect those things and that will make me remember it more. You know what I mean? So I've been watching that, some of his old reruns back in the day. But the show that Seven's talking about that he wanted me to talk about, Outer Range. Look, if you want to watch a show that is legitimately kind of a mind fuck, excuse the language again.
That is twice. Do I need to bleep that in post? Or just let it go?
I think we're all adults here. I do on the YouTube side of the house. I put not intended for children, so we do.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll leave it. We'll leave
because I'm an old idiot sailor, and I tend to curse every now and then. But there's a show on Netflix that if you haven't watched Outer Range yet, I would highly suggest you go back and watch first, and it's called Dark. That show.
So you would recommend going and watching Dark before Outer Range?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, my prior statements about mindfucking, Dark is about the worst that you could possibly.
Yeah.
Like, it is a show that will really throw your mind into all kinds of weird loops to try to figure out what's going on. It's about time travel and alternate universes and interaction if you time travel, etc., etc., etc. Amazing show. It's completely in German, but it's dubbed into English, and they dubbed it in a way that there's a lot of times you can't even tell they're dubbing it. Like, they did a really good job of dubbing this show. Normally, I would never suggest a dub show, ever.
Really?
Yeah, I would never.
We watched Dark with subtitles. We never checked out the dubbing.
Okay,
but it is pretty good.
Yo, it's.
We loved Dark. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
We loved Dark.
I legitimately won't suggest dubbed shows. I shouldn't say I won't. Very rarely would, right? Because there's a couple of sci-fi shows from studios in Korea that they're doing a great job at dubbing as well. But Dark was the first one I was like, holy crap, it's so good. You have to go watch it. It's on Netflix. It's free. Go watch it. But Outer Range, man, let me tell you. So we're not done watching it yet.
You get your Josh Brolin fix. Oh, you're not done watching. Okay,
I'm not done watching.
You get your Josh Brolin fix, right?
Oh, man. I mean, you want to talk about a dude that has a range of acting. I mean, come on, man. Like, he is all over the place this whole career.
So good.
And he fits the older rancher kind of persona perfectly. He doesn't have...
Nails it.
Yeah, he doesn't have an actual Southern accent, but every time I've ever heard him with a Southern accent, I feel like he hits it typically, or country accent, I should say. He's just it's a good show. It's another good show that you could probably put on Friday night, and you're going to blink, and it's going to be Sunday afternoon. You're going to be like, what the hell just happened? Like, I'm trying not to give spoilers, but it's the same realm as Dark.
Let's set that stage then to see if people would be interested. So Outer Range is one that I recommended to you. Normally this goes the other direction. You recommend things to me, but
yeah,
that is one I had recommended to you. And Outer Range is definitely science fiction, but it is set in Wyoming.
Yep.
And the setting itself is as much a part of the show as anything else.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful. It's it's Wyoming, right? It's gorgeous. And then the people that are there, it very much feels like it could be in Wyoming. And just on the surface of it, a science fiction show set in Wyoming has a different vibe, and that I thought was I liked personally.
Yeah.
I thought was great. And then you add in Josh Brolin, Imogen Poots, right? You add in some of these actors. It's just so well done. There's an actor, Will Patton, who plays Wayne Tillerson.
Yep.
And
I love that guy.
oh my gosh, it's as good.
Yeah.
It's just really well written, really well acted. And no spoilers, but if you're into science fiction and you want something that feels a little different vibe with amazing acting and writing, then it's a definite.
On Amazon
something you
Prime.
should check out.
Is it Amazon Prime? Max.
Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime, yeah. But definitely go watch Dark. Go watch 1899 as well. That's another German. I'm pretty sure it must be like Netflix Germany or something like that produced it, because it's a lot of the same actors from Dark are on 1899. It's a very similar level sci-fi, screw with your mind kind of level show. Great show, but yeah, I feel like if you're the type of person that's like, I want to see Yellowstone, but I don't have Paramount or whatever it's on, and I like sci-fi shows, there you go. It's Yellowstone meets sci-fi. How's that? Is that a good sales tactic?
I think that works. And I have not seen Yellowstone. I think I've seen one episode or half an episode, so I kind of know the feel of it. So yeah, science fiction Yellowstone. I think Yellowstone's still on my list to watch, but I'm glad you're enjoying it, man.
Oh, I love that show. That's a show that. So I kind of got upset because me and Rita started watching Battlestar Galactica because she'd never seen the series all the way through, and then we got sidetracked with Outer Range, and God knows when we'll get back to Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah. Well, Outer Range is worth it. I'm excited to hear as you get near the end of it, how you like it. And we are still working our way through the X-Files, which you got me on.
Yes.
Again, I love the X-Files. But we went back to season 1, and we're watching one episode at a time. I didn't realize there were so many seasons of it.
Yeah.
But we're watching it straight through. My wife had never watched it. So I started her off on the episode. I think it's called Home, right? It's the one with the Peacock family. So
yeah, I think that's the one I told you.
Like,
you gotta watch this episode.
Oh, I remember that one from when I was like, that one left me scarred as a young person.
Oh yeah.
And she watched it and she was like, wait, and she looked up when that episode came out. And it was like 99 or something.
Yeah.
And she was like, they made that?
Yeah.
And I was like, you have no idea.
Yeah.
And so we started watching from the very beginning, and it's been very, very, very fun to just go back and watch it. It's enough to chill. It's interesting. Gillian Anderson's in it, so
I mean, anything with her, period. Gillian Anderson, period.
She and David Duchovny's the chemistry between them as the seasons went on was just absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
And then the other show that I'm watching, we talked about this probably about 6 or 7 months ago. Rebel Moon came out on Netflix. It was a 2-part show.
Yeah.
I think it was like an hour and a half per part 1, part 2. And so the show, which is who directed it? I'm horrible with names. I'm sorry. Zack Snyder directed Rebel Moon, and
That's right. Yep.
I saw in an interview, Zack Snyder was talking about Netflix approached him. They wanted him to do Rebel Moon, but they wanted him to do a PG-13 Rebel Moon, and it had to be X amount of time in length, and he couldn't do too much. And he said, the only way that I will do Rebel Moon is if you let me re-release Rebel Moon 6 to 9 months later as a director's cut, rated R, with everything I cut from it to make it fit your timeline. And Netflix said, yes, you could do it.
Really?
So
he got the agreement. So Zack Snyder got the agreement.
Yes.
I'll do it the way you want, so you can do your release.
Yes.
As long as you'll let me come back and do it the way I want.
Yes.
And that is a real thing now?
So the original release was like part 1 and part 2 were an hour and a half-ish long. It was okay. Admittedly, Rita and I watched it. The second one, it was like you got lost a lot because it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. They've re-released, I think a week or so ago it came out. Part 1 and Part 2 are both 3 hours long.
Ooh, okay.
And let me tell you, Rita and I were 1 hour into Part 1, and the amount of stuff that was added back in, I'm like, we never saw that. We never saw this. We never saw those boobies. I never saw that. Like, there was so much that they added back into the show. I think her and I are only about 2 hours into Part 1, and the show makes so much more sense now, because I don't know the comic story background. I don't know any of that.
I may need to check that back out too then. That's pretty good.
I highly recommend it. And like I said, I'm not even done with Part 1 yet, and I'm already sold on seeing the whole thing because there's so much more story. I mean, just the action alone. I mean, it's Zack Snyder. Come on. The amount of action going on in the first hour was just insane. Like, it highly recommend Rebel Moon, the director's cut. It's on Netflix right now. Part 1 and Part 2. Set an entire Saturday or something, because that's 6 hours of watching a show. Like,
yeah, but, I mean, it's Lord of the Rings level. You know, it's interesting to me. We watched recently John Adams, the show.
Yep.
And
Great show.
Oh, it's as good as historical. Right, drama.
Paul Giamatti does not get enough kudos in movies in general.
Right, in anything, but in that show. But the format of it, I wanted to mention the format to you and see what you thought. The format of it it's a limited series, and so what that means is it has a beginning and it has an end. It's not a movie, meaning it's not released in one segment. It is segmented like a series would be.
Yeah.
But it's like 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah.
And that's it. And they basically set it aside and they're like, we're going to break it up in 1 hour increments, but we're going to tell the story and we're going to be done. And I will tell you, I think limited series is probably my favorite form now. I want shows and stuff to have an end in mind.
So what was the first show that was like that, do you think, that you can remember?
That's a good question.
Because John Adams released in 2008, right? I think with streaming in general, you would think that that would be more of a thing. Like we're storytelling through episodes that are going to go through however long, you know. There was a bunch of them, like Spartacus, Rome, going back a while back. Even the show Firefly was kind of like that, but if you watched them out of order, it didn't make sense, which is why it really didn't take off, right? Josh Whedon talked about that. Originally, the whatever reason, they released the show in the wrong order, so it didn't necessarily make sense, and so the viewership was low, etc., etc. That's why it had such a cult following. Chernobyl's, all those shows, so that's nowadays, but going back, Game of Thrones, that's 2012, 2010, 11, whatever. I don't know. I feel like not enough shows are done like that. Something should be a movie, but if you did the movie, it would be a 2-parter, 6-hour movie. So
it's like the Zack Snyder issue, right? He obviously left so much stuff on the editing room floor, but if you said, look, I'm going to do a limited series. Cool. What do you think it's going to be? 8, 9 hours? I think it's going to be between 6 and 10 hours. Cool. I will bite off 6 to 10 episodes. Yeah. You tell the story. Don't leave everything on the editing room floor. We'll release it as a limited series, and you'll get the whole story, and you'll get the content, and you'll get. And when you got John Adams, right, the way that story is told of the beginning of this country is one of the best tellings I've seen. And it isn't really that political.
Nope.
It's just about John Adams and his journey through that process. And it is absolutely, positively fascinating. When he's in France, when he's in
Yep.
Paris, and the way that people dress, the way that they did makeup, the things like that, it's really a look into. I think they went a long way to make it as legitimate looking as it could, and it's like I could believe that's what it looked like the teeth, the whole thing, like it
Yeah.
was. It was
So
really
you-
good. So yeah, I think limited series is my.
So you
my
watched
favorite.
John Adams. Have you seen Franklin on
No,
Apple?
not yet.
Go watch that. You should watch that. It's the telling of Ben Franklin's side of things.
That would be fun to watch.
Because he was in France for literally years. You know, little interesting tidbit of information that a lot of people don't know, that when Franklin came back after we had won the Revolutionary War, there was a bill for millions of dollars that he had spent in France with absolutely nigh a single receipt, and none of that money was ever paid back or accounted for. Like, nobody had a clue what that money was spent on, and it was literally because of the pomp and circumstance that Franklin tried to keep around him to keep the influence when he was
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah, interesting.
But
Yeah, I
go,
need to
but
check
go
that out
watch
for
it.
sure.
Go watch the series. It's
Yeah.
it's legit. It's a good show too. So that's on Apple TV, by the way.
Yeah, and Apple TV. If you haven't picked it up, App and I have talked about this quite a bit.
$11.
And even if you're only going to do it for a month or two,
Yeah.
and you're going to binge watch, you should, because especially if you're a science fiction person, like
Yes.
Apple TV has got it on lockdown. They really do.
I would argue get
just
rid
banger
of.
after
I would
banger.
argue get rid of. Well, hell, any other streaming service. Honestly, because there's so many shows, I could list probably 6 off cuff that would keep you busy for like 2 weeks straight of binge watching. Like, no kidding.
They are so good. Start with Silo
Yep.
and just tell us what you think, right?
Yep.
Like,
yeah.
you'll make your way to C eventually with Jason
Oh,
Momoa. You'll
man.
get there, right? But you've got so many shows.
Yeah.
Severance. Have you watched Severance yet?
I haven't. That's on my list. It's on. I
Okay,
haven't got
it's on
there
your
yet.
list? Okay.
There's just so many shows too, man. Like, you know. Plus,
Yeah.
then you get sucked into freaking First Descendant, like
Oh my God.
free to play. Get it. Give it a try. Not gonna
Yeah,
lie.
you want to talk about what you're playing?
Yeah. Well, no. Do your what you're hearing. Let's keep it in order. I don't want to.
Oh, do an order?
Yeah.
Okay. So what am I listening to? I am listening to last Friday, a band I know some of the members of, a band called Future Birds out of Athens, Georgia, launched an album called Easy Company. They're not new. They are not, right? It's a brand new album, studio album. It's fantastic. You should check it out. They have they got a track on there with Patterson Hood and a track on there with Waxahachie, and it's just a really, really good listen. And I got to be honest, I'm a big fan of this Australian band, but I've never seen a band launch more live or more studio albums. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, and they had an album, Flight B741. And I will be honest, sometimes their albums come out and I'm just like, oh, it's okay. This is a really, really fantastic album.
Okay.
So yeah, Future Birds and King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard
a hell of a
out of
name.
Australia is, it's a great name. And then there was a Twin Atlantic album that came out as well that a lot of people liked. I liked it. It's what I expect from Twin Atlantic, right? But the King Gizzard album struck me, and the Future Birds album actually caught me off guard with how much I enjoyed it. So I've been really enjoying listening to those. And if you were to listen to those 3 albums, you're gonna have a big breadth of the kind of music you're checking out. Future Birds in particular, if you like a country folk, I'm not gonna say country because it's not Nashville pop, right? It's
Sure,
not that,
yeah.
but that's the truer country troubadour band folk style stuff. That's where they are, and really
Add it
good,
to my
really good
checkout
guys.
list.
Yeah, worth checking out. So now, Hapa, what you playing, Hapa?
Let me tell you. Okay, the First Descendant.
Let me tell you.
That game completely and wholeheartedly caught me off guard. I did not see anything really about it. My brother was playing. I was playing my usual games. I'd see my brother playing it, and my brother is a pretty good gauge for games, like games you play with friends, typically.
Like a co-op style game?
Yeah, and that's kind of how we're kind of in the same realm for games like that. And he was playing this game, and I saw him playing it every night. And he works night shift. When he gets up at a certain hour, I'd see his Steam pop on. It's on the game. He'd pop off. I would wake up in the morning. He'd be playing it before he went to bed. Like, just on. And eventually, I was like, is this a good game? And he was like, it's free. Try it.
Free. Just try. First hit is free. Oh,
that's how my brother is, man. Like, hey, man.
Uh-huh.
Hey, man. You want to try a bump?
It's free.
You want to try a bump?
It's free.
And I loaded it up, and I started playing it. And the very first thing I noticed, there's no PvP.
Yeah.
Which is already a gold star for me. Because I'm tired of games like this pushing PvP. You know, I had high hopes for New World. They pushed PvP, it ruined the game for me.
That's a really good
pushed
point
it.
on New World.
Really pushed
that
it.
actually, yeah.
I was huge into Destiny 2. Then they opened up PvP, and they opened up PvP so much that they literally gutted the story and everything just to try to push you to go PvP. Ruined the game for me. I stopped playing. So many different versions of games like this that were like RPG, MMO kind of style games. I've always said I'm a huge co-op with friends kind of gamer. I love games with friends. I get bored by myself otherwise. And this one really slammed me like no idea. Like, I didn't think I would get hooked in. There is micro purchases. Almost all of them are cosmetic. They have a battle pass. Everybody has a battle pass nowadays. Doesn't upset me. But the battle pass is extremely easy to work through. You just do stuff in the game like you normally would. Let me just say, there have been many a holy crap, it's 2 a.m. nights. Many.
I've known you for a minute.
Yes.
We have played games for a minute. I have never seen you.
Yes.
At 2 o'clock every morning.
Like,
and let's be
weeks.
honest. You got me playing. Well, you got me playing it.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, check this out.
Seven's got an adult job, by the way.
Yeah, I got to get up in the morning. So like, hey, it's free. So you did the same thing to me that Dan did.
What
to you.
about
I didn't
watch?
know that at the time. Hey, kid. And I got into the game, and I will say it reminded me, and I told you this when I kind of started playing it, reminded me a lot of Warframe, which I really enjoyed Warframe.
Yes.
Warframe has a lot of really good gaming systems, and a lot of the kind of core gaming loop is very good. It is not new player friendly.
Correct.
The First Descendant is a very new player friendly game that has some of the same sorts of gaming loops. It does not, however, allow player training.
Correct.
And so there is no market. So everything that you're going to get in the game, you're going to get.
Yep.
You're going to, as your brother has found out the hardest way possible.
Oh.
But like, the game revolves around, it's a looter shooter, and the game revolves around having a bunch of different champions. They call them descendants, but a bunch of characters, right? And you work your way through a story, and then you grind and make your character better and better and better. And there's all these systems in the game that you can go participate in, whether it's an on-demand boss fight with a Colossus, whether it's running out in the open world and just doing the missions there, whether it's doing dungeons, whether it's spawning a world boss. It's all these different subsystems that you then participate in. I was not expecting when I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to start grinding stuff. Kind of thought I'd be bored with it. I have actually enjoyed it more.
Yeah.
It is a solid game. It's out of Korea, so just a heads up for anyone who is English speaking. The translations are suspect. I'm not convinced that the voice acting is humans. I do think the voice acting may be AI.
I think it's a lot of AI, honestly, because there's a lot of voices you're like, that sounds like this actor or that actor, but it's not quite them. Right?
Yeah, it's is that Morgan Freeman? No, that's not Morgan
Not
Freeman.
quite.
So it really is, though, the kind of game, if you want to chill, play with friends, no PvP. I agree with the PvP stuff. I like PvP games at times.
Yes.
But PvP games come with a requisite amount of toxicity that sometimes look, I am the kind of guy who has to keep an eye on my mental health, and being around too much toxicity is just like,
Well,
that's not how I want to end my day.
I think that's why you and I have connected since the beginning. Was gaming was supposed to be a means to escape a lot of the real world, and when the toxicity of the real world leaches into a game, I don't want to play said game. And that's why I've always said I'm a social gamer. So co-op games like this, like you could literally be just lazily wandering the world collecting materials, and someone in chat's like, could someone please help me with this mission, I can't do it. Or you could literally be seeing somebody in chat, they just got knocked, they just got downed, and you wander toward them and then just literally jump into their mission and help them complete it. Like that, to me, games like that will always make me happy and excited to play it more, because I don't have to sit there and, like we joked the other day, we were doing one of the colossi, so one of the boss fights in the game, and we were, obviously in chat call outs were happening, like back in the old day of call outs where, points on, like I used to call it points on Jug Bear or jam one jam two.
Yeah, Deacon was laughing his ass off at us. That was
yeah, but it's like that type of game where I could roll with a group of 4, or you can game the system. So I've gamed the system and had 6 friends in the same region rolling together, because you group up, you land, and then you leave the party, and you group up and you land, and you leave the party. So you could end up with a group of people you're rolling around with. But you could do stuff like that. You could go and just roam the world and clear and help people with mats. Or I've had friendly chats with people, like while we're waiting on an enemy to respawn, and like it's just a fun game. And I've always said this is where the free to play, I think the free to play economy idea really comes into its own, because if you produce a game that really doesn't have any bugs, right? Because that's something we haven't talked about yet about First Ascendant. The game's crashed once in weeks of playing. I haven't found any bugs, except for every now and then a localization from Korea to English isn't there. It's in Korean. You're like, I don't know what the hell that says, but it wasn't something vital to the game, so whatever, If a game is well produced, it's fun, it's got a good grind loop that isn't too grindy, by the way. So, like, I can grind for stuff, and I'm still getting other stuff that I might need, even though I'm not necessarily getting the one thing I need, right? Like, I don't need to go kill and get 35 bear assholes when not every bear has an asshole. That's the reference that Rita likes to use. I'm okay with it. And this game just has that. It has every champion is a little bit different. They've got their different gameplay, their different style. I unlocked 6 different champions without even trying it. I was just playing the game and getting their whatever I needed to make them. Like, that to me is also cool. Like, it seems like the RNG, though for certain items, obviously is a little off. My brother was trying to grind for a specific item for like literally, I think, days. And Seven and I both ended up getting that item by just running around with him while he was
standing next to him.
Yes, he was doing the thing that he was supposed to get the thing from, and somehow Seven and I got the thing, and he didn't. Like, but that's RNG, right? We always talk about that's RNG. But it's really not that bad in general in this game. It's not something that you're going to. At least in my mind, I don't rage about it. My brother probably had some moments where he was getting ready to punch his computer
when we were
screen
talking, it seemed like he actually had a great attitude about it. We were having fun playing the game.
He's that type of person. He doesn't get mad about that stuff.
One of the things I love about the game is it is not punitive. So if you fall off a cliff, you just respawn there.
Yep.
If you die, you just respawn there. You
and
don't
there's
lose
no
all your
durability on your
stuff doesn't
gear.
break.
Yeah.
It is just a nice, relaxing game to play. And when you make a game like that, so this is a live service game. We were talking about earlier games that are live service versus not. This is made from the ground up as a live service game.
Yeah.
It is free to play. It does have the ability. It has a store concept where you can go buy some things. When I cross a certain threshold of hours played where I'm enjoying the game, I will go intentionally and buy something from the game company to help support them.
Yeah.
It's a thing I can do. Not everyone can, and that's okay. If you need to play for free, play. Yeah. Everything in this game can be gotten for free.
Yep. And they don't have
can
the thing where it's like, oh, if I spend $20, my RNG is better. That's not the case in this game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You can buy things outright.
Yes.
Some of the things outright, and some of them are expensive. But you can also just go grind them for 20 minutes, right?
Yeah,
Like you can make the choice.
And
So
to
it's a
give you
good game.
context, it's as if Destiny 2 and Warframe had a baby. Like, that's the best way that I could describe the First Descendant. Again, free to play game. So I would, if you liked Warframe or you liked Destiny 2, I would go check it out. Because for me, it was like Warframe in mechanic, but not like Warframe in the amount of grinding or the harsh grinding you had to do. Because Warframe was rough with that. Like,
Warframe is a very significant grinding machine.
Yeah.
For sure.
But yeah, so
For sure.
First Descendant, go check it out. I'm probably going to get off here and go play it again until 2 in the morning. It's going to be great.
Oh, we're absolutely about to go play it. That's absolutely what we're about to go do.
So here we are, 1 minute over 2 hours. We had said a few episodes, actually at the beginning of season 2 of this. By the way, I think it's crazy that Seven and I, here we are, season 2. We did this 2 years.
Yeah.
Over 2 years we've been doing this podcast. I know there's people out there that listen to us fairly regularly. If you are one of those folks, greatly appreciate you. Hope that we are entertaining at least and not boring. I know for me, this has been a project of love from day one. And I don't mean love necessarily like I love Seven. I want to make that clear because he's got a wife that I'm very scared of. No. But this was supposed to be a project that we didn't like. It wasn't meant to be work. Like, we didn't want it to be work. That's why we're kind of lackadaisical on our release schedule, and we try to do it as we can. But all of the support that everybody out there has been giving us, the listeners, the viewers, is amazing. Hopefully you guys out there in Spotify land, if you guys could write reviews, please. Hit us up on any of our social medias for ideas for topics. We say this just about every episode. I think we've gotten 2 submissions so far. Literally, as long as they aren't like political or, the edgy topics, we do touch a little bit here and there, but we try to keep that out of the ethos a little bit, or ether a little bit. You can reach me at Hapa_fodder pretty much anywhere, whatever social media platform. That's me. Seven's the same way, right? S3VYN everywhere.
There you go. Yep.
There you go.
S3VYN. Ever since like a long time ago. So I try to register on everything. You can find me pretty much everywhere on all the socials and stuff.
Folks, it's crazy out there right now. Everywhere you go. Social media, the news, the real world. It's crazy out there. Please be a better human out there with your interactions with each other. Don't let that shit, get you down. If you're on social media and you're noticing you're doom scrolling, put the phone down, get away from the computer, go out, touch some grass, go look at the sky. It's crazy. There's clouds out there. I don't know what's happening. You're all right. Go take the dog for a walk. Go hug your family, whatever. Please, if you could, please, just be better to each other. Be better stewards. Be better humans to each other as much as you can. I cannot say that enough. That's about all I have to say about that.
I can't say it any better than that.
And 2 weeks from now, what is that? 2 weeks from now is the 29th-ish?
Yeah, but we should be on the 28th, which is that Wednesday.
Correct, 28th. So
that's 28th
August.
For, the 28th, yeah.
In the year of our Lord, 2024.
2024?
The 2000th year of the 24th year. We will see you all next time.
Podcast like that.
No, I would not be able to keep that up. All right, night, everybody.